Hey party people, I'm Brennan, and today's video actually is going to have like virtually nothing to do with gender. It's actually going to be about the service industry and what the service industry is, who makes up the service industry, and why we deserve a living wage. Um, so the past like few weeks, I know New York State or just city raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It's going up in a lot of different areas. Anywhere between 10 and 15 people are raising minimum wage all over the place. And this is causing a lot of people to be extremely outspoken about who they feel deserves a living wage in this country. And as somebody who makes actually sub minimum wage in an industry that is largely unregulated, I really can't wrap my head around an argument against people making a living wage. First I want to talk about what is a living wage. A living wage is money that you get that will enable you to take care of your basic needs. Electric, heating, depending on where you live. One of those might be a necessity, one that might not be. Or air conditioning or whatever. Clean water. Food. In my opinion, access to nutritional food with nutritional value. Rent, housing, roof over your head. These are things that in a country, the base pay should enable you to pay for. We are a civilized nation. We are a developed nation. We are a first world nation. There is no reason that anybody in this country should be working full-time / more than full-time, 40 to 60 hours a week, every week, and not make enough base pay to provide the basic amenities for themselves. This has been a problem for a really long time. I'm going to check up the exact date of when this book was written, but there is a great book that everybody points to. Nickel and Dimed in America. I have a lot of issues with it just because like I studied ethnography in school, and I have issues with her process, and I don't think she was her way of writing. It didn't really acknowledge all of her biases exactly. But yeah, so this was written in 1996. Oh wait, no. Between spring 1998 and summer 2000, published in 2001. So this book, published 14 years ago, was about how you cannot make a living on minimum wage. It follows a woman, this ethnographer, journalist. She went to different states, got a minimum wage job in every state, and tried to make a living for like a set amount of time in different states on their minimum wage, and she could not do it. She could not do it at any place. And this is a single person. This is somebody without dependents. This is somebody who she wasn't paying for any extra health or disability stuff. So yeah, it wasn't possible in 2001, and it certainly isn't possible today. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. When, like, for example, somebody in my family is sadly comprised of quite a few pieces of garbage, and one person posted this or reblogged, and in my opinion, retweet equals endorsement. They retweeted this some military person who decided to break down. Let's take a military salary as an E4 specialist. Let's remove all the benefits, all the reasons that anybody would join the military, because soldiers don't make that much, and it's all the benefits, such as free college, such as free rent, such as pension, such as full 401k, such as full health. Like, come on. Like, you don't join the military for the salary, you join for the benefits. Like, there's a lot of benefits. If there weren't, nobody would frickin' join. Like, you wouldn't have recruiters saying free college, hey, free job training. Like, it's all about the benefits. So this military person pulls out all the benefits and says, base pay, I'm only making, if you do the math, I'm only making $8.64 an hour. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have to pay for your housing because you live on base. Like, you didn't have to pay for your college. You're not paying student loans. Like, So Yeah, as much as I like disagree with his math in the first place, he goes on to be like, no, no Sally McBurger flipper has ever laid down in a field and died for her country to defend, like, just that whole idea where like nobody can be a hero if they're not enlisted in the military. Nobody, if somebody is showing an ounce of bravery, like if they're not in the military, it's not real bravery. Like it's that whole like idea that I don't know. It's just weird. But yeah, so like this whole idea that like train of thought. The minimum wage argument or the living wage argument isn't about who deserves to make more money and who works harder and whose work should be like rewarded more. There's already a huge problem just like with the way our capitalist economy is set up, where people who have higher degrees and things like that, people who work higher up in like the job hierarchy actually don't do as much labor and make more. So like if you're actually paid for like the amount of strenuous labor you're doing, or paid according to like the labor you're doing, like fruit pickers would be making the most money in this country. So the amount of money you make already is not based on the job you're doing like at all. It's more based on things like experience and like the social connotation of the job that you do and how important it's perceived in society. So, because like sports figures are clearly more important than doctors, clearly more important than teachers. Like you can't make this argument that money has anything to do with how hard you work, or your salary has anything to do with how hard you work, because it doesn't. Like that has nothing to do with anything. The bottom line is that the cost of living in this country has gone up exponentially. It is the highest it has ever been. It's going to continue to rise. And our base pay, our minimum wage, has not risen to meet that. That's just mathematically not going to work in an economic system. That's what's going on. That's the bottom line. That's the crux of the argument. So, like, any argument about, like, who's more worthy of, like, how much money can just go out the window, because that's not what anybody's talking about. It's how to fix this huge discrepancy between how much it costs to live in this country, be it the price of food, the price of gas, the cost, like the cost of living isn't just your rent, it's a lot of things, versus like how much you make. So that aside, I also want to talk about the attitude that goes along with the people asserting this kind of stuff, which is that one thing I hear is, if you want a higher wage, get a better job. Okay, I'll come back to that. And the other one is like this idea that everybody who's either working minimum wage jobs or is on like any sort of government assistance is like a lazy, drug addicted, ambitionless piece of shit. And we're gonna talk about that. So I mean, I'm a waiter. I make $2.13 an hour in the state of Texas. That is about $5 below current federal minimum wage for non-tipped employees. So there are people in this country who make well below minimum wage. I do get tips. Contrary to popular belief, people who are waiters and bartenders do have to, people say like I don't have to report my tips and don't pay taxes. That's absolutely not true. I'm required by law to, depending on the state, report up to 80 or 90% of all my tips, cash and credit. So like, yeah, I'm paying taxes. Thanks. And a lot of places, depending on the state, depending on the employer, they might reimburse if it's a slow week or a slow day and you didn't get tips. Some places require you, and some states require you to bump the wage up, and the employer has to reimburse it up to the federal untipped minimum wage. In the state of Texas, the amount that they have to bump it up to is only $5.50. It's not the full minimum wage of $7 or so. So that's, I mean, I also want to talk about like what a waiter is. A lot of people think like, it's kind of like an easy job. It's a dumb job. People think that, it's always strange to me the negative opinions people have of like service industry people when the food, I don't even like calling it service industry, it's food, beverage, and hospitality. The food, beverage, and hospitality business is one of the most, like, the fastest and most consistently growing, like, industries in the country, even in a down economy. Americans love to eat out. Americans have always loved to go out to eat. Like, they love being waited on. How many times, like, all these people running their mouths about, like, waiters don't deserve a living wage, da 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 da, fast food employees don't deserve a living wage, Sally McBurger, blah 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 blah. Like, how often do they go to fast food? Like, I hear my family members saying this stuff. I'm like, I know you go to Burger King like 8 times a week. Like, but you reap the benefits of these people's labor. You go out to the bar every frickin' night. You go out to eat every frickin' night, but you don't think we deserve a living wage. But you reap the benefits of my industry and of my hard work and my labor and like what I do every day. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, people think the work that doctors do are important, and you see a waiter way more often than you see your doctor. Like, it's just kind of funny. You seek the services of a waiter or a Sally McBurger flipper like probably more times in a year than you would a doctor, a lawyer. Like, it's insane. As far as the if I don't like making so little, I should get another job. I like my job. That's the other thing, is the idea that waiting tables is a dead end job. I guess that depends on your idea of like what work is and what your idea of job versus career. America is a very career oriented country. It's an expectation that you go to college and you get a career and you have a career. It took me a long time to figure this out, but I don't think at this point in my life that I'm a very career oriented person. I have a lot of avocations and hobbies that I enjoy doing. I'm an artist. I make these videos. I garden. I'm learning Gaelic right now. I do dancing. I play instruments. I have a parrot. Like, I have this beautiful, like, vibrant life full of like a lot of different things that I do. My job is a paycheck. My life starts when I clock out. So I really. I work in an industry that enables me to have flexibility. I work dinner shifts. I have the entire day to myself. Like, I can go out for lunch. I can sit out in the sunlight and paint all day. Like, I can go to the park. Like, I can spend time with my friends. Like, I have this, like, I have a really enjoyable life, and I like my industry, and I genuinely am interested. Like, I love to go out to eat. I'm genuinely interested in food culture. And that's the other thing is, like, back to, like, Americans love and eat out. What is the biggest, like, reality show genre out there? Cooking shows. Like, Americans are obsessed with cooking shows. The restaurant industry, like, obsessed with it. But, like, we don't want to pay them a minimum wage. Like, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I genuinely enjoy food. I really like going to like the newest restaurant and trying to make new ingredients. I really love seafood. Like, oh man, like I'll go on like seafood tours of cities, like, and go find like the best like broil spot, the best crab spot. Like, I'm really into food, and like, so I genuinely enjoy working at a restaurant that is, ingredient driven, that has like a really good chef. I love like talking to people about what interesting stuff we're doing with like the food or the beverages. Like, that's stuff I actually really like to do. And waiting on tables and being part of somebody's night out with their loved ones and being part of what makes or breaks, like, your waiter can make a good night amazing. Like, that my entire job is to facilitate your needs. Like, you go out, you sit down, you have a conversation with the person you're there with. If I'm doing my job right, you don't need to ask for anything other than to order what you want to order. You will not need to like indicate that you need more water. You will not need to like, it will all be taken care of magically because I'm really good at my job. And like, that's the experience you're paying for, is you don't have to lift a finger and it just gets taken care of like magic, and then the person just disappears into the wings, and you're, it's an experience. Like, it's why people go to restaurants. I also want to talk about, like, yeah, people make all these judgments about who people on federal assistance are in. I'm kind of lumping those two together because it's dually applicable. A lot of people who work in these lower income jobs also need to seek out federal assistance programs like food stamps and things like that, just to make ends meet, or access public housing or public health care. So there's a lot of overlap, and a lot of the stereotypes about both demographics are dually applied. The lazy, the drug addicted, and stuff like that. Like, absolutely, alcoholism and drug addiction are more prevalent in people in lower income brackets. They are more prevalent in the service industry. I think it's a combination of working a job where your client base makes you feel worthless a lot of the time, combined with your low income and that stress, combined with just working around alcohol. Like there's a lot of factors going in to why it's so prevalent in my industry. That being said, the state of Arizona just did a drug test on like everybody they had in welfare, and they only like tested like a handful of positives. So it's like clearly people on welfare like aren't spending all the money on drugs like people think. It's also really insulting because I'm a server in recovery. There's actually a lot of people in the service industry who are in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, so that's like actually a very sensitive subject. It's kind of like bringing up like making fun of someone of Irish descent for drinking. It's like actually that's created a lot of problems in my industry and is like destroying a lot of good people that I know. Like so like it's a sensitive subject. And I don't really see why drug and alcohol addiction is something to ridicule and hold against somebody as a moral shortcoming in general, because I am a drug addict in recovery and I am an alcoholic in recovery, and it is not a moral shortcoming. Um, it's part of a very complicated biosocial neuroses that we're only just starting to begin to understand. Um, Also, I worked in fast food for a really long time. I worked at Burger King for like 4 years. It was one of like the best jobs I had. It was just like so much fun. Really like that's the other thing is these jobs are low stress. Like I worked in public health and I worked jobs that in HIV outreach and community advocacy where there were jobs that I took home with me and got very emotionally invested in and very politically invested in, and it was exhausting and it was hard for me to make that difference between work life and my personal life. And like now that it's like I wait tables and then I have like there's no politics in burgers and hot dogs, so I'm much happier. But back to what I was saying. Freaking coffee brain here. In working in fast food, it's the people who make up the Sally McBurger flippers are a really fascinating demographic of people and not what anybody would actually think. I worked at a place where a lot of people were on like work release, so a lot of minor drug felons, stuff like that. I could talk for hours about drug felonies and how that's unfair and blah blah blah. School to prison pipeline. All those kids are black, like that I worked with who on work release for like locked up for having a quarter of weed. But also there's a lot of people who are older and of retirement age but want to have a job to fill their time. There's also a lot of people with mental retardation who work in fast food. Because it is like a very, a routine-based job that can be like a sense of comfort in that situation. And it's something that, it's a job, it's a paycheck, it's like, that's empowering. A lot of people that I worked with were single mothers or just like mothers who were returning back to work. And I did say this video is going to have nothing to do with gender, but actually the fact that an industry dominated, like service, food, and bev, is like dominated by queer people and women. In this country at least, it's a males. In France, waiters are men, but in this country, it's a industry dominated by women and queer people, and it's absolutely no coincidence that an industry dominated by those two demographics are one of the only ones where it's permissible to pay us a sub-minimum wage. Like, that is absolutely no coincidence. And I worked with so many women who, were supporting their children, working a fast food job, and then would go to a night job, working a 7-Eleven or whatever, piecing together 2 part-time jobs. And that's a lot of other factors like not having education, dropping out of high school, things like that are intersectional issues with health and your health of your family and who maybe had to drop out to take care of somebody. Like there's a lot of different factors. It's not always laziness. I worked with people who had been in a trade and had like a very specific trade and had gotten seriously injured and could not do that trade anymore and therefore had no skill set for anything beyond that trade and ended up in fast food. I worked with people who had taken 17 years off to raise children and tried to get back into the workforce, and the workforce is sexist as fuck, and it's like, so what was with this 17-year gap of employment when which you were like, a stay-at-home mom, aka like managing an entire household and wrangling children, like multi-tier management, like so it's just there's just so many interesting people, and even now, like in waiting, like I no longer work in fast food, but I mean, like all everybody I meet who's a waiter, everybody's so different. Like a lot of us are artists or actors or do nonprofit work or other things that don't pay as well, so we need to supplement. Other people simply enjoy that this industry enables you to travel. Like I've worked at resorts. I know people who've worked at cruise ships. I know people who have been a sous chef at a this McGill Science Base in Antarctica. Like you can go anywhere with this job, and like when I look at the people I graduated with who stayed in the industry, like I graduated with an English degree. I look at the people I graduated with; they're all like mid-level, assistant editors at a small time publishing house or like science journal, and like that's cool. And like if you enjoy your job, that's awesome. A job's a job, but you still live in your hometown, like, and I've because I was in service, I've been able to like go to New York and Maryland and now Texas, and it's just that's what's enabled me to not be tied down anywhere. um so yeah, I don't know, I think it's really I really try, and it hurts hearing this stuff come from someone who's a service member, because I think that's another demographic of people who just have a job that get assumed that they're ideologically 100% agree with the job that they're doing. When I think that some people are just the kind of people who can separate work from personal life, and I can't. Um, I don't agree with the military, but a soldier is a soldier. And I can see the person behind the uniform, and I really wish that those people would return that favor and see the person behind the apron. Because all our stories are different. We're all different. We're all people, and we all deserve a living wage. So, 22 minutes of my 2 cents on minimum wage and the service industry.